It's about 6 o'clock, so we're going to get started here in, well, now. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the library and to our candidates forum. Can you hear this clearly? Okay. I've been asked to tell you that the restrooms are across the hallway and there's restrooms upstairs. The event depends on the questions, but we're going to start wrapping things up here about 7:30 because they want to close the library at 8. And at 7:30 we can all go upstairs if people still want to talk. The way it's going to work is that, oh, by the way, I'm George Sands of the Middleton Review. And that is Michelle Phillips of the Middleton Times Tribune. The way it works is each candidate is going to make an introductory statement. They have 3 minutes each, which is the time that they give the citizens at City Hall during the public comment period for council meetings. After that, Michelle and I are going to ask some questions, and they're going to have 2 minutes to answer the questions, and then we're going to open it to you. If you have, obviously you can ask any questions you want. You can ask the questions for a specific candidate or for more than one candidate. We're going to ask you though that you ask a question and do not make a speech. Leave that to the politicians. We're going to start with the introductory statements right away, and we're going to go from left to right. I'm going to briefly introduce all the candidates so they don't spend too much of their 3 minutes doing it themselves. But Cornell LRB runs in District 1, John Schaefer, also District 1, Lucas Morgan, District 3, Katie Nelson, District 3, Emily Kuhn for Mayor, Kathy Olson for Mayor, Jeffrey Jackson, District 5, and David Lawman, District 7. And so we're going to start, oh yes, you might want to give him the microphone, Cornell LRB.
Okay. So he's doing a statement?
Yes.
Yeah, I get to be first. Hello, my name is Cornell LRB, and I'm running for District 1. I'm one of the candidates. So a little bit about myself. I lived in Wisconsin for a little bit over a decade. Majority of that time has been in Middleton. I decided to buy a house near Verona, realized I did not like shoveling snow, and I came back to where I loved, which was Middleton. During the pandemic, we all had a come in a crisis moment, and I wanted to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, and I wanted to serve my community. So, since the pandemic, I joined the Public Safety Committee, went back to Madison College, which I graduated from, and now I'm a part-time instructor. I'm also an entrepreneur. I created an indie video game company, but I also work on websites for small businesses because I found a lot of times small businesses sites can be a little out of date and companies charge too much to get those fixed, and I wanted to be a helping hand for that. The reason why I'm running is I wanted to be a voice for my community. I hang out at Capitol Brewery, I hang out at places downtown, and people ask questions of like why Stonehorse was built, what's up with the community campus, and I'm usually like, well, that's on the website somewhere, you can find it. But then I realized I talk to people and I can actually relay what people are saying to the committee and talk about issues that are important to everyone. So the 3 things I'm running on is public safety. One, because I'm on the public safety committee, but public safety goes beyond how many cops we have. It's what we're aware of with our community. It's places where blind spots in roads. There we go. Oh, the other thing is our community needs. What do our community need? And that's, I need to hear from the people within my district. I do not think I know better than anyone, and I want to have a conversation with people. The last thing I'm running on is long-term sustainability. Middleton will be developing because there's more people living here. But I do not want Middleton to lose the character that it currently have. And as we develop, I want it to keep a character, and anything that we build will still be beautiful and usable many years down the line, and can give back to everyone in my district. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, and yes, we do get snow here in Middleton as well. Thank you. I'm John Schaefer, also running for District and District 1 council person. Just a quick background, I grew up in Detroit, went to school at Wayne State University, studied classical guitar, taught at the University of Windsor College in North Carolina, and went to do my doctorate at Indiana. Taught for 1 year at Purdue, and I joined the faculty here at UW in 1986. And 4 years ago, I ended what was a 33-plus year career at the university. Our entire time since I've been here with my family has been living in Middleton. So we moved here in 1989 and have been here ever since. We have an old, what started out as a dilapidated duplex down in the old downtown District 1, and we started many years ago renovating, 30-some years ago, a 20-plus year process of renovating our house, which is now one of the historic landmarks. So we have a long history living in the city, a long history living in District 1. I'm very proud to be here. I think I've been involved in the city in lots of ways for many years. I'm currently, for the last 4 years, chairs the Park Recreation Forestry Committee. I feel very strongly about parks and green space. I see a pressure coming in the city. One of the things I'm running for is that we're beginning to fill up. And as we fill up, it gets harder and harder to find land. And while I believe strongly in public safety, one of the issues of public safety is having a place to go with kids, families, to go out and see a tree, see some water, let them play in the playground. And that's very important for me. I also feel that from all our years in Middleton, I've noticed many different characteristics of neighborhoods. We are a city, but first and foremost, we are many different neighborhoods, all with their own different qualities and characters. Mine happens to be District 1, which I love that character, and I think that as we grow up and keep getting bigger and bigger, it gets harder and harder for us to sort of maintain the individuality, the characters that make each of our parts of the city what they are. I've had the pleasure of being on the Plan Commission also for the last 3 years, and so it gives me a voice into watching how developers think and what they want and what they do. And I think I've got and been a good strong voice for trying to promote issues of sustainability and space for people to live and breathe and have neighborhoods that still reflect why we all moved here in the first place. So thank you.
You guys are on, but they don't have a microphone, so I'll take that back.
Go. Hi, good evening. My name is Lucas Morgan. I'm running for District 3 Alderperson. I was born and raised in Middleton, and I've lived here almost my entire life. I'm a legal paraprofessional for the law firm Perkins Coie, downtown Square. I attended Elm Lawn Elementary School, Cromrie Middle School, Middleton High School. I graduated from UW-Madison. I bought my home on Franklin Avenue in 2014. Lived there ever since. I worked at Scott's Pastry Shop when I was in the 8th grade through senior year. And I checked brush for the city streets department, picked up all the sticks that you all leave on the side of the road in the summertime. I'm running for Alderperson in order to provide some more transparency to the District 3 residents and help resolve any constituent concerns or that might be brought to my attention. I'd like to bring a fresh face and new perspective to the Common Council. And my priorities and concerns revolve around taxes, spending, and housing, as the other folks mentioned. Thank you.
If it's okay with you guys, I'm going to stand up. We sit too much. First, I want to congratulate everybody who's up here. It takes a lot of courage to run for office and stick your neck out and say that you're going to do some work. So congrats to all of you for being here. I'm Katie Nelson, and I'm running for the District 3 Alder position. I've been Alder here in this district for 2 consecutive terms, but my story really starts back in Janesville. I grew up in a middle-class home with my dad working for the local bank and my mom as an elementary school teacher. Our message growing up was to make the world a better place. It's not just about dollars, it's about language, it's about arts, it's about sports. It's a full life. So as long as I can remember, my family's been involved in politics. Extended family parties would all include politics talk. It wasn't just another story on the news, it was the way of life. Policies that get made at all levels of government affect our lives, and that was part of our daily conversation. My grandfather, Nelson, ran and won for city council in Janesville back in the early 40s and also was the coroner. I'm not going to go there. But we were so involved. I remember being 8 years old and going door to door with my mother canvassing for George McGovern. And you know how when we were kids and you got like a rock band poster on the basement ceiling? Yeah, well, mine was Les Aspen, Congressman. So, I've worked in Middleton since 1997, and I moved here in 2005, and I've lived in District 3 that whole time. Fast forward to 2023, and I'm running again to continue the work I've started. As a business owner and a homeowner, I understand the challenges that both of those endeavors bring. I've done a lot of work on different committees such as sustainability, license and ordinance, workforce housing, arts committee, and the community development authority. I look forward to continuing good work on the University Avenue corridor, Stonehorse Green, traffic calming on Park Street, and I look forward to getting a communications director that will really help bridge the gap between the alders and our constituents. Most of all, I'm here to listen to my neighbors as we make Middleton a better, more vibrant place. Thanks.
Hi everyone, my name is Emily Kuhn, and I am running to be the next mayor of Middleton. I'm really excited to be here. There's so many reasons that I'm running, and I've been talking to about 1,000 people in Middleton already. A lot of doors, a lot of listening. It has been absolutely wonderful to hear people and their stories and their interests and the way that they love Middleton. They tell me all the things that they love, and a lot of the same things is what we all feel as well. The reasons I'm running is for the environment, housing, especially affordable housing like starter homes, duplexes, and condos, and to support public safety, including our firefighters, EMS, and local police. And stepping back to the environment, the things that I want to work on is everyday conservation. It's the things that I teach my own kids, to turn off the lights and, make sure you turn off the water, but making sure we're doing it across the whole city. Because I care about the city and I'm worried about climate change. There's so many more things that we can do on the daily, on the weekly, and the year. Lastly, the reason that I'm running is that the flood of 2018 hit my district. I think the hardest, if not one of two, but all the water came pouring towards Lakeview Park. And I worked with those families as their basements were flooded many times for the next year and a half. I worked with businesses and the city staff, the county, and the state counterparts asking for resources. And I even was sandbagging after the storm. Many other parts of the city were not affected for that long term. The Conservancy was, and absolutely I'm running for that. So I want to see more trees planted, more grasslands, things that will hold it together. And with that, we have a lot of things to move forward. But in the course of the next 6 weeks, I hope to hear from the rest of you that I have not talked to yet. And I look forward to Election Day. Thank you for your time.
First, I'd like to thank Michelle and George for arranging this forum and for all of you for coming to hear about, learn about our candidacies. My name is Kathy Olson, and I'm running for mayor. I am currently the district alder for District 1, and I've been for 8 years, and I'm also council president for 2 terms. District 1 represents the downtown area, Greenway, and western portion of Fox Ridge. I'm one of 8 children, and I was raised on a dairy farm in Sauk County. And I learned important lessons early in life. I learned the love of environment, the value of hard work, and the value of a dollar. I learned that optimism can get you through some challenging times. And when you grow up in a big family, you learn about teamwork, humility, and humor. Don't take yourself too seriously, because being human, you will make mistakes. And most importantly, I learned by example from my parents. They taught me the value of volunteering and building community. My husband Steve and I have lived in Middleton for 34 years. We raised our 2 children here, and they went to the Middleton schools K through 12. Early in my career, I worked as a computer programmer for a national road and bridge contractor. And then when my children were little, I stepped back from full-time work. When they became school age, I went to work as a para-educator at Sauk Trail Elementary for 6 years. This was a very important experience for me. I saw the struggles that families are going through financially and even homelessness. Then when my kids were a little older, I went back to full-time work in an architecture and engineering department for a national design builder for healthcare facilities. It was during this time I learned about environmental and energy efficient design. This experience will benefit Middleton because the mayor chairs the plan commission, and I'll be available to evaluate proposals and ensure they support the Middleton's land usage and renewable energy goals. I'm proud of my accomplishments and record. With Stonehurst Green, I led the effort from the land acquisition, design, fundraising, construction, and now programming. Following the floods of 2018, I fought to have the pumps replaced at Tideman's Pond. During my 10 years on Sustainability Committee, I organized 10 successful clean and green recycling events that led to the Permanent Recycling Center. I'm a Good Neighbor Award recipient in 2008 because of my volunteer efforts, and I was a past president of the Historical Society and of our neighborhood association. And I'm particularly proud of the efforts to rebuild the old elm lawn school pillars on Hubbard Avenue. It took 5 years fighting for funding for the materials, but I was determined to have these pillars remain part of Middleton's history. Just as my husband and I have built our lives in Middleton, I want Middleton to be a welcoming place so that everyone can feel a sense of belonging and a greater community. You know, I usually don't talk too much.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Reverend Jeffrey Jackson. I am born and raised in New York City after the 9/11 attacks, which I supported greatly when they were out there on the cleanup. I decided to move me and my family to Macon, Georgia. Then after Georgia, I received a job opportunity in 2019, Director of Operations of the International House of Pancakes, which landed me in Wisconsin. At that time I came here, I had the opportunity, because of something that I went through in a housing situation in Middleton, to meet Emily Coon. And when she heard my resume and my story, she encouraged me to run. This was over 3 years ago. At that time, I decided not to, because I was the guy on the other side of the fence. I was the one screaming at the politicians about changing our community, which my voice was heard. I've been involved in the community a lot. Now I said I'm going to dive deeper. My first community action was when a friend of mine was murdered in our community by a drug gang that took over our community. And screamed out to the politicians and local leaders, I was able to get the whole gang dismantled and sentenced to life in prison. I said that you're not going to have our community. And I reached out when I heard of the referendum on public safety and adding more police officers in Middleton. I said, it's a go. I'm going down there and I'm going to make my voice be heard, because Middleton is a beautiful and to me, secure city. And I wanted to stay that way. But I know that when we're not proactive and we're not doing anything to secure our borders, that snake called crime will sneak in and it will take over our communities. And whether we want to accept it or not, many of us watch the news, Madison has an issue. And we're not far over the borderline. We've seen that at the George Floyd incident with the riots. I myself had 3 peaceful protesters on University Avenue in prayer about the riots. So I'm here not only to be a voice for the people, but a voice to the people. We're living in a time, in a dispensation in our country where racism is heavily pushed. And African American people, minorities, or Latinos, they can't hear from what we would say around the room as allies because they don't trust you. So I'm here to run in Middleton to bring the trust that those that are in Middleton, that are minorities, Africans, and Latinos need. I'm here to be the voice to them as we're from them. I'm not the one screaming black power. I'm the one screaming we need to get ourselves together first and let's come together as a community and network that we can be a beautiful community. Last thing I say is in knocking doors, that's why I heard a lot of people saying Middleton is a city, not a community. We need a community.
Good evening, I'm Dave Lorben and running for District 7. District 7 is the Orchid Heights, Highlands, and a little tract over by Pheasant Branch, and then a neighborhood cordoned off over by Brummer. I'm really here because of encouragement from people I've got to know in the community and family and friends. So I don't come to the district with an agenda. I come to the district as a representative and really taking sage advice from those I've talked to. Specifically, I reached out to Dan Ramsey, and Dan said, you know, you're running for district alder. Not anything bigger, not anything greater, not anything larger. You're not representing the schools, you're not representing the city, you're a voice for the people who live in your district. And so to that point, we talked about it quite a bit, and he pointed out simple sage advice. People aren't happy with the streets, what can you do? You want a restroom in a park, let's talk about it. You need to make an improvement in the neighborhood, do some consensus building. And so to that end, prior to that, leading up to this, I've been a member of the Airport Commission since 2020. And what brought me also to the Airport Commission was encouragement from people I know in the community, and I thank them for getting me involved. My background, I grew up in Wisconsin from Fort Atkinson and attended school in the Milwaukee area, graduate and undergraduate, and came to settle in Middleton in 2004 and have been here since then. My daughter is a product of the local school system and now at University of Wisconsin La Crosse. And so really to that end, I'm really here to represent and be a voice of the district. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I have a question for the 4 people who are running for alderman in the competitive districts. For each of you, what do you think you can bring to the city council and to the community that your opponent can't? And we'll start with District 3, Katie Nelson first, then Lucas Morgan, John Schaefer, and Cornell Allen. And you have 2 minutes, please.
Thank you for that question, George. To District 3, I bring experience of 4 years on the council. I have made amazing connections with people on our terrific city staff. It's one of the favorite things I like to tell people is we are so lucky to have the city staff that we do. Having made those connections, I am able to find answers to constituents' questions very quickly. I can get responses. And I know how the system, if you will, works. I know that things go through committee before they go to the council. And it's nice to be able to just get the answers for people's questions and get things done in an efficient manner. Thanks.
I'm running for District 3 alderperson because I want to be a deliberative and responsible advocate for the District 3 residents. And we'll base my decisions on resident feedback and input. And it's my feeling that when residents express concerns, gather signatures on a petition, show up to City Hall to express those concerns, that they should be listened to and taken seriously. I would like to see the Common Council exercise some more checks and balances regarding city administrative issues instead of just being a rubber stamp at the end of the legislative process. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, George. I spent a lot of time working on different city committees. I think some of the strengths I bring, again, 6 years in Parks Recreation, Forestry. I've been on the Conservancy Lands Committee. I've been on the Plan Commission. I'm currently on the Westport Middleton Joint Plan Commission. I've been on the Middleton Historical Society Board. I've been on the Library Board. And living in District 1, we've had many issues on and off with the cities over the years, so I've seen a lot of how things work and don't work. But I bring a lot of experience and I think a breadth of knowledge. Plus, living for 33 or 34 years in this district, I know a lot of the people. I know this city, but I like to listen. Just a quick little thing, having spent my years teaching graduate students, I learned to listen to them and I learn more than they learn from me. But I also drive a school bus and I've got kids who are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and learning to listen to them and be part of their lives broadens your perspective. So I think I have a good set of ears that can bring some perspectives.
Excuse me. So what I feel like I bring is fresh eyes. I'm not familiar with the system. I'm not familiar with the way that we always done things. And as a result of it, I will ask questions, I'll try to learn, and by asking questions, it may allow us to have better ways of doing things. District 1 is a very large district. It has downtown Middleton, and it has Greenway Station, and also the golf course. While I've lived in Middleton, I have lived over by Bristol Board, the Harbor Gym, and some of the not so desirable neighborhoods. I've been lucky enough to move up into a nicer apartment. From that apartment, I have moved into a house, realized it was too big for us, downsized to a condo. If anyone in my district comes to me and talks about complaints they have with their home, I understand that because I owned a home at one point. If anyone complains about the high rent, I understand the rent because I have dealt with the rent before. I have dealt with the condos. I have the ability to have lived all aspects in Middleton, and I love to listen and I love to learn. And I think with my fresh eyes and my ability to communicate, hopefully I can help us to move forward.
Thank you. I have a question for the two mayors, or the ones who want to be mayor. In Middleton, our system of government is a strong council and weak mayor. And so, given that, how do you intend to get things done? You have 2 minutes each. And Kathy, you go first, please.
Yes, that is correct. It is weak mayor, you only vote if it's a tie vote on the council. But what you have to do is build consensus with your council members. And I am honored to have the enthusiastic endorsement of 3 former mayors. That's Mayor Ramsey, Zwonk, and Sonente. They know what it takes to be a successful mayor, and they support me because I demonstrate leadership, I have accomplishments, and sound judgment. As the mayor, you need to be a good listener, a trusted resource, and like I said, build consensus with other officials, community leaders, and committee members. By working with the city administrator, you lead policy decisions and allow the administrator to implement those moving forward with his staff. The mayor also needs to foster strong intergovernmental relationships and partnerships in the surrounding municipalities, whether they're local, regional, or state, as well as build partnerships with educational institutes that ensure the city residents have long-term educational opportunities. As mayor, you recognize and celebrate and promote the accomplishment of businesses and organizations through the city. And it could be through grand openings, proclamations, or ribbon cuttings. You have to be a cheerleader for the city. And I tell you, my 6 years on tourism is that I absolutely want everyone to hear what makes Middleton great and why you should come here to live, to work, and play. Thank you.
You know, that's a great question. How do you get things done? I've actually managed people and projects in the course of my career. I've been an alderwoman for the last few years. It has been a great experience, and it is different than what I've done in my federal service. But I've actually managed over 60 people in 2 facilities on my own. And you do it through managing with through others, and you have to set a vision. You set a tone, and you create a framework. You talk to people, you communicate, you get stakeholder buy-in. Now, when you're working with your council, you have to listen to them, see what the needs are, but put it in that framework, and then explain it if there's a mismatch. You want to make sure we're flying in alignment, is what I call it. One of the things that you do as a mayor, as Kathy pointed out, is you break a tie, you might be vetoing on council, but what you really want to do is set the tone and support the city staff, make sure there's training going on. Make sure city staff is getting trained, making sure council's getting training, because one of the things not being talked about is we have a very new council already. We will have a further new council already. Hopefully we'll keep some folks wherever they are. But the reason that I say this is the knowledge has stepped away, and we have to make sure mentoring is going on, training, and that we lead. And every day we lead with those ethics and principles.
Thank you. One last question for me for the 2 mayors. Both of you stand more or less for the same thing. You both support the environment, you are for in favor of affordable housing, for sustainability, responsible fiscal government. So how can people differentiate between you 2? Why should they vote for you rather than your opponent? Apart from your personal wish to become mayor. Again, you have 2 minutes each, and this time start with Emily, please.
Thank you. So I would say I'm an economist. One of the things I didn't share prior is that I worked for the federal service for over 20 years. I've done federal budget process, and I have a master's in public policy and economic development. And what I learned during my school years, and then also the implementation of policy at Social Security, is that you have to bring all the stakeholders in a room, you have to talk to them, you have to figure out your vision and move forward. And we've done that on council. So we have to move that forward in a leadership manner. Now, having managed 60 people, I know that you have to be excited, you have to love the job that you do, and you have to inspire. You also have to recruit for diversity and hire for excellence. We lost about 25 people last year in the city. Is that right? 25? Thank you. So the thing is that as we recruit new people, we have to share that knowledge. And we want to make sure that you have someone at the helm that can do those types of things and set priorities. There's a lot of ideas out there, and there's a lot of funding. But at the end of the day, we have to stay on budget, and we have to know that budget, and we have to move it forward. So I'm that person that can do it because I've managed people and projects for 2 decades. Thank you.
Thank you. You're right, George. I think politically, Emily and I are very very well aligned. But we do differ in our approach to the duties as an elected official. For me, I do my homework, and as mayor, I see that you have to be a trusted resource. Words matter, facts matter, truth and honesty matter. If I make a mistake, I correct it immediately. I struggle with when you're unprepared and not having your facts. I chair the community campus committee, and there is a document that Emily has put together and is distributing that I have no idea where you got the information from, because it says in the next 5 years the city is planning to build a community campus in downtown Middleton with 5 municipal buildings. That has never been the plan. That is not the timeline, and you have to be a trusted resource. You have to check everything. You have to, when you put something out there, it's important that people can rely on you for the information.
Okay, well, I'm going to start out with some questions for the council candidates, and we'll start with District 1 and we'll move our way down the table. I've heard a couple of you talking about affordable housing, and that is certainly an issue in Middleton. Right now, you have a project that was just approved called Red Tail Ridge, and it has multiple types of housing along with commercial. And so I want to know, is that something that you see Middleton continuing with in the future? How do you see affordable housing shaking out in Middleton over the next few years?
So the way I see affordable housing shaping out in the next few years is, for a community to grow, it needs affordable housing, period. I'm in my 30s. I know so many colleagues that are making close to 6 figures, and they're leaving our community because they can find affordable housing somewhere else. As people are coming outside of our state, driving 45, 50 minutes to save $300, $400 is a non-issue for them. The reason why I'm sitting here today and able to run for alder is because I was able to find affordable housing, affordable stuff, and work my way up. And I'm not saying I pulled myself up by bootstraps by no means whatsoever. I had the support of my lovely wife, and I had the support of my community. But without affordable housing, a community will fall because that is the foundation. And that's something I would want to continue to push on. In any new development that is built, I want to talk about that development in a reasonable way to see if they can afford to build reasonable and affordable housing on it. If you build something up on a high ridge that has a beautiful view, that housing will never be affordable because you're paying for that view. So as we develop, I want to make sure that we can always have affordable housing for students who are graduating from MATC or UW with grad degrees who want to come to our community and build their life here and give their skills and their money to our community because they had the opportunity to do it because they was able to find affordable housing.
Thank you for the question. I also support the strong need for affordable housing at all levels. Sitting on a plan commission, I see the dilemma that keeps coming up, that we're running out of land, so developers want to build more and more, and they take up the spaces that are available, which are often where affordable housing is. And so we have to look at these issues and how they affect. Certainly, if a developer comes in and they're putting something and they're looking at city support and TIF money and funding like that, there ought to be demands and expectations that affordable housing be part of what they're building or part of what they're doing, or if they have to look at the possibility of relocating, they should be the ones responsible for footing the bill and taking care of those people who are now going to get displaced within that position. Also, we look at buildings being built and how many, apartments are affordable apartments as opposed to how many are penthouses sitting on the top of these buildings. But it's a dilemma. It's happening. It's a dynamic in the city as we run out of usable space. And I've seen this and worked with this for years, and I think I can bring that knowledge, but I certainly want to keep that on the forefront of all discussions when we go through these problems.
I would echo the sentiments of these two gentlemen as well. I think Red Hill Ridge is a great development project. It's going to provide missing middle housing that a lot of people are calling for. I like the mix of single-family housing, condos, duplexes, what they're calling cottages, all in one neighborhood. I think it's a great idea. I'd love to see more of that. I agree that we only have limited space to be building apartments. And if we're going to be building affordable apartments, I think rather than such small percentages that they have now where a developer might take TIF money and they set aside 10 units out of 60, maybe they need to be setting aside more affordable housing units. And as far as the land goes that was mentioned earlier, Middleton's not a vacation resort town where you get to pick a lake view or a golf course view and fly in on your private jet. The Lake Street apartment building I don't like, and I don't like the 3 8-story apartment buildings that are going to be built on Pleasant View Road. I think we need to pay attention to that and do a better job with our space. Thank you.
Thanks. The Red Tail Ridge development is definitely a welcome new development. It is out on Pheasant Branch Road, and it does have that mix of single-family and multifamily homes. As everyone else previously has said, we are at a loss for inventory of workforce housing. I believe that the University Avenue corridor, which we are trying to rejuvenate, is a good opportunity to put the missing middle housing in there. We have very little empty lots to build on. So as those places get rejuvenated, it might be a perfect place for townhomes or condos and the like. Before I was on the Community Development Authority, there was a program that was a down payment assistant loan program, and that helped people enter home ownership, and I would like to see that reinstated. As a member of CD, I'd like to try and push that if I am back on council. Another option would be turning apartments into condos. I learned recently that literally the walls between apartments and condos are different, and I understand that some of the newer developments are being made with walls that can be converted into condos. I believe Middleton Center is built that way, and that might be a really nice opportunity for home ownership for some folks. Thanks.
Jeffrey, next.
Affordable housing. I've heard a lot about that. And one thing I can say is when we hear affordable housing, what is affordable housing? I live in Avery at Middleton, and I'm very transparent to say that I'm paying $2,500 a month. That is ridiculous to me. But I'm paying it, I can afford to pay it. I'm not saying that I'm not struggling. But as living at the Avery at Middleton, I watch U-Hauls go in there every day moving people out. People are tired of paying that amount of money with no amenities. We're putting up these houses. There's no, once again, community. There's nothing around. As I was knocking doors, I've ran into a few people, Chicago, Baltimore. Hey, what is it to do for the kids here? What do we take? I'm paying $2,500 a month for this apartment. Listen, I want my child to be able to go to a decent park. So when we talk about affordable housing, and I agree, we should begin, I feel that we should come up with a plan that if you can pay $2,500 a month for at least a year, let's find out how we can get you into a house. Let's really give affordable housing, because what we're calling affordable housing right now, I'm sorry, it's not. It's not. It is and I say this, this year or last year, the World Financial Analyst for America said that if the average American is not making $35 an hour, they're in poverty. So we have an inflation situation, all kinds of things going on around us that we're letting landowners come in and tap on prices at. As a matter of fact, the highest price in Avery and Middleton is $3,000 a month for a 3-bedroom. that is unacceptable.
Thanks. I absolutely support Middleton's effort to build and create affordable housing through this development. The city has a workforce housing strategy, and efforts to develop affordable housing through community development efforts and broader partnerships throughout the county. Workforce and affordable housing aren't just fair housing issues; they're also an economic development issue. Making sure people can afford to live in the community where they work is important for economic development. And this really falls also into the other part of it, which is really equity and accessibility. And Middleton really should continue to develop infill housing along transit corridors. It's important for the city really to partnership with surrounding communities and the state to carefully design and accommodate those in need of public transportation. So the two work together. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this next question of all of you. There's been a lot of talk recently about shared revenue coming down from the state. I know everyone's very hopeful about that. Last weekend when Diane Hesselbein and Alex Doors were here, they were discussing the possibility of shared revenue being distributed among municipalities. So I would like to know how you would use that additional money. And I think we'll start at this end with Dave this time.
Well, there's absolutely need within the city to utilize any amount of revenue possible, and really the city is also in need of staff development and building the staff. The city is short on staff. Staff has, as our mayoral candidates pointed out, there's been high turnover. And as a resident of the city, what I've realized is if we don't have infrastructure, the city isn't going to thrive. And so that money really can be put to use at that level in ensuring that we have people to staff the city for safety, administration, and public works.
I agree with what David said. Our city staffing needs to definitely be more structured, more knowledgeable, and it's going to take forums, it's going to take research to get that done. I also think that we need to reconsider where our funding, where our money is going after it comes into the city. And knocking doors, once again, I hear a lot of people saying that when they shop, when they eat, most of the stuff they're doing it in the city of Madison. So our money is leaving the city because there's, once again, as people say, there's no community. There's very limited amount of stores, recreation, anything for the people who are exiting here, for their children to do. So I think that we really need to think wisely in decisions we make. One of the things that I find to be a problem is in knocking doors, and I hear people saying there's decisions that are being made, but the people are not involved. The council is making the decisions. There needs to be a better communication amongst our constituents and those who represent those districts on what the people want.
Yeah, just right down the line.
Yes. I was very happy to see that in the proposed state budget, there was $817,000 allocated for public safety for Middleton. Public safety needs have been hurt so badly with the levy limits that this would be very welcome. It would really help bridge the gap of what we've been experiencing. Some of the things I would use that public safety for is I met with Chief Hellenbrand and we discussed the growing need to help those with mental health crisis and how we can better address that. That would be through providing more training for our staff and providing more professional services. Additionally, within 5 years, there's going to be a need in Middleton for an additional third ambulance, and we will need funding for the staff and for the facility for that as well. And for the other options we have to address would be, I would like to see more promotions of that, like the National Night Out events. It's such a good way to highlight and showcase what Middleton's first responders do as they work around the clock. Those are always like they have to go out and fundraise to do those things, but if we had more resources, we'd be able to do that and bring the community together more. Thank you.
Yes, I'm very excited about that shared revenue. It was a delight to see Senator Hesselbein and Representative Joers talk to us last weekend at the budget listening session. Many of you were there, so thanks if you were there. Just so you know, they both endorsed me for my candidate for mayor. I would invest that money in technology upgrades for the firefighters, EMS, and local police. I've sat on public safety for the last 5 years, and the person that works at the police station is often swapping out old tech, pieces, buying things off Amazon to make it work. We need to fundamentally ensure that they have the right technology so that when they are responding, they have the best and they can get going. Same thing with the firefighters and the EMS. They all need upgrades. We often put it out every year and say, okay, this is how much we can do, or we can replace this portion or that portion. I also want to focus on lands and conservancy. I want to make sure we're planting trees. We're making sure that we're planting the grasslands. We're reinvesting. As we rebuild the conservancy, some of it is put back to grass, but it's the lawn kind. It looks lovely, but it's not going to keep the soil in when the next big rain comes. So I want to do that. I want to keep making sure that we're funding training and development for our city staff, and that we're optimizing resources. Of course, if there's money left over, I'd love some roads, and if we can, some climate change investment. I'd love to see some LED lights on those streets.
Thank you for this question on shared revenue. My wish list would include more grocery stores for people to be able to get food without having to go too far. Also, public transportation. The tourism division had some trolleys that they were renting, and you could see them going around the town, and they were most often empty. I would like some of the shared revenue distribution to go toward owning some trolleys. Have you all been to New Orleans, where you can take the streetcars for $1.23 a day anywhere you want to go? That could bring people to the library. It could bring people to the grocery stores. And then lastly, we need more police officers. We were lucky enough a couple years ago to get a new crisis center called Middleton. So we're near Costco. It's where if someone's having a mental health crisis, the patients can go there. If they get physically violent, it's up to the police officers to take them to Winnebago. The law changed, I think under our last governor, that all transports in the whole state have to go to Winnebago. That takes 2 officers, 17 hours of their time. They're just out of commission for the staff at that point. They are right now running 24 beds. They want to up to 72 beds, and that's just going to draw on the police department. That will be too great for them to handle. They're worried about that. So that money would be well spent to go to more officers. Thanks.
I would use the shared revenue to cover any overages in the budget. As we saw just this past election, there was a referendum for more police officers and city workers raised, and the communications director. I think Kathy said there was 817,000 allocated to Middleton for public safety. That would have covered that portion. And I think we should make sure that all of our needs are taken care of before we start getting to the wants. And with the additional money, we could do that. Thank you.
I can speak louder.
Thank you. I have to concur with pretty much everything being said. Public safety is very important. So instead of reiterating, I'll give another perspective that I talked a little bit about quality of life and public safety is also being able to walk down the street, ride a bicycle, be able to get somewhere where you need to go out in the evening and you need to feel okay that you're not going to get run over by a car. I talk about our children. Our kids went to schools here and trying to find playgrounds are hard, but safe parks. Our park size has doubled in the last 20 years and our staffing has stayed exactly the same. Fortunately, we got another position with the last referendum, but so we can't keep the parks up. So what do you have if derelict bathrooms and no lights in the parks and your kids, you're afraid to send them there? That's also a safety issue that goes beyond just simply more ambulances in place. I support that, but I think that this city is great because it's got an incredible quality of life, and being on parks for so many years, I see that perspective, and certainly I would bring that to the table.
What I would like to do with that money is to upgrade anything within our city that is costing us money. Emily pointed it out earlier. Some of the street lights, for example, are not LED. Just old school classic light bulbs. Those things burn out quickly and they take a lot of maintenance, where LED lights will last longer, require less maintenance, but it's also less staffing that required to replace those. So the good place to use that money, because you have some extra money, put it in places where we can upgrade a system to save us money in the long run. The other place where I'll use that money at is to enhance areas that are lacking. For instance, in my district, one of the things that made me start running was District 1 really needs a dog park, I'm sorry. Because people run their dogs near the railroad track, and that's just not safe. So it'd be nice to have a designated dog park. But we've talked about food and stuff like that. One of the things I would like to do is to revitalize the Greenway Station area. That area was built to be a destination spot originally. I lived here for 10 years. Now we have apartment buildings completely around that area. And either I have to leave my district to get food, or I have to leave Middleton to get food. That area is no longer an industrial park, it is now a residential zone. And with the additional money, that's something that we can help to improve that, to make people feel like they live in a residential area, not just an afterthought on the way that people are going to the golf course.
Okay, so my last question is going to be just for the mayoral candidates. And over recent years with the master plan at the airport, the relationship with the town of Middleton has been strained. And as the mayor is really the face of the city, what would you do to try to repair the relationship with the town of Middleton?
Do you want me to start or is Emily?
Sure, go ahead, Kathy.
Yes, the airport has become quite the topic in the last recent months and year. One thing that I think that I offer is I was the only person on council that voted against the master plan and the expansion of the airport. So, and after I voted against that, actually both towns did reach out to me and thank me for that vote. Currently, we're working on rebuilding the town of Springfield's relationship, and we've had some committee of the whole arrangements with them, and we're working on transportation and stormwater with the town of Springfield. Town of Middleton, we have some ongoing challenges with, but I think that I can help bridge that gap. So they know who I am. I think they know I'm honest, straightforward. I do my homework, and they know that I understand the issue fully. As far as the airport goes, we have to remember that the airport does offer some very big benefits to Middleton. It was built in 1940 and acquired by the city in 1998, and the main reason for the purchase was to provide a buffer between the business park and the agricultural land and make sure that those two are very distinct. And more than that, it's important for the businesses. It protects wildlife and natural habitats. It's a large solar array. It helps with stormwater control and infiltration, including the Pheasant Branch Creek, which is located adjacent to it. And all these things are important for the city of Middleton that we have to keep in mind. It's the town of Middleton, sometimes they make comments that they want it shut down, and I don't think that that's going to be, we have to be able to work with them, but we have to protect what we have invested in the airport as well.
You know, I think that's an excellent question. When you're working to repair relationships, you have to build upon the experience that you've had. You know, there's times where we're going to agree to disagree with the town, but we can find common ground. And I think sitting down and talking with them, I would explain that I am open to a north-south runway besides this east-west one, because it would reduce noise over the town of Middleton by 20 to 30%. The reason that that's important is that's one of the first issues they brought to us, is that it's very loud. It's the same pattern. They've also asked us to see if we can try one or two other things. We can sit down with the airport commission, we can look at that, and as a leader, you can hear out the other side and say, this is a good first try. Let's move forward. Now, with the north-south runway, if it's effective to reduce the overhead traffic, which is the travel pattern, by 20 to 30%, that is that moment of peace. That we are trying to show, we are trying to make change. We are trying to be that good neighbor that we say we are. In finding that common ground, we can pivot to other things. So one of the things that we work with the town of Middleton is our senior center. We do serve the town of Middleton. They come in, they use our services. We have an opportunity to upgrade our senior center and do programming that's robust and wonderful, and it already is. But as the city continues to grow, so will the services, and so will the demands of service. And I think that's a place where, having my experience in 20 years of federal service and managing both people and projects, is sometimes to set aside the thing that is upsetting and go to a place where we can all agree, our senior center is wonderful, and how can we serve the community?
All right. Oops. Right now it is up to you. So if you have any questions, I will walk around with a microphone, and or there's one here.
Hi. I'm interested in increasing accountability within the city, particularly between the council and the mayor to the city staff. In particular, back in 2016, the city had a climate change referendum, which was supported by 81% of the voters. And the council in 2018 unanimously approved a resolution with many goals for the city to reduce our carbon footprint, for lack of a better term. And then nobody held the city staff accountable to many of those goals and objectives, despite numerous city plans that have been produced since then. And so, what would you do to increase accountability to the extent that we're not just now buying our first Prius and electric vehicle after having these grand plans to reduce emissions for 5 years since the resolution?
Who do you want for whom is the question?
Anybody who's got a good idea.
Okay.
Thank you for that question, Kevin. You're right. In 2016, we had a referendum, and the citizens of Middleton were loud and clear. They support the sustainable efforts in protecting our planet. Our city staff, Abby Atuna and Kelly Hilliard, are doing exemplary work and recognized leaders in their field. And through their work in sustainability, it is now incorporated into the comprehensive plan. This is a huge step for us. This touches everything that we do. In 2015, the city has started using TIF incentives and financing to help build things that are more energy efficient, and that has been successful. And we need to do more of that. And that is also helping us meet our 100% community-wide renewable energy goal by 2050. It is helping. It's starting. We know the three big energy users are the buildings, operations, and municipal fleets. We do need to start getting the EV charging stations at our municipal buildings. Last year alone, we spent over $67,000 of contingency fund to cover the cost of the increasing prices of fuel. That is not, it doesn't make financial sense, and we need to do this to protect our environment with the EV charging stations. And we need to be ready to convert to these vehicles when there's comparable models available. We need to be ready to go.
Thanks, Vernon. I like that your question talks about accountability, because in federal service, I've worked as an auditor for over 5 years, and often when people have vision, they have goals, they're excited, and then the next problem arises, and those things get set aside. So one of the things that I do every 3 to 5 years is sit down and say, what was the goal? Are we within the framework of the goal? And how do we step back and get back on pace? As mayor, I would have the annual expectations for every employee include sustainability because of what the survey results have done, what everybody has gone to referendum for. I would also communicate weekly to the whole city staff. It can be just 3 lines, but this is where we are, and have a celebration of success. Have where we are and where we're going, because if you don't set that vision, things get set aside. Lastly, I would ask for briefings with the directors weekly. And on a quarterly basis, I would have a forum with them to talk about what we're doing to move things forward. Because if you're not pacing towards that end-year goal, you're not making the 3-year goal, and you're not making the 5-year goal. And that's what I've learned as an auditor.
John? Yep.
Yeah, thank you. If I could bring it, I'm not on the council, so I can't give you that perspective, but I've worked a lot with staff. And I want to just state, that absence of evidence is not, absence of evidence doesn't mean evidence of absence. That there is, in fact, I see a lot of things going on with the staff that I think are very important. I'll give you specifics. I'm working with on Parks and Recreation, and we're dealing with a lot of equipment for mowing all the lawn, every median in the city. And there's been a very concerted effort to try to convert everything to battery powered, let's get rid of the gasoline, this and that. And then we start to look at availability and costs and quality of the products and realize that we'd be throwing a lot of money away in the short term if we jumped in head over heels and did it all at once. So the premise is what we set up. We actually sat down and put a 5-year plan in place that looks at what can we do now to change that equipment with reliable equipment, and what will happen over the next 4 or 5 years, and watching constantly. And as soon as something becomes available that has quality and is not throwing away money, that shift is going to be made. So that it's not the total answer yet, but it's certainly happening, and we're making some progress.
I would like to speak to that. I heard 5-year plan. I feel that there needs to be follow-up and follow-through. And that's what I think that we're lacking in knocking doors. I had the same thing. There's a lot of conversations that come across the council and there's no follow-through. One of the things that I'm very concerned about is climate control has to be a priority. It has to be a 911 situation. I want to read something briefly. And it says, countries agreed to eliminate global warming to well below 2 degrees, 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit, and ideally 1.5 degrees as part of the 2015 Paris Agreement. The latest scientist shows that emission will need to drop by at least half by 2030 and reach net zero by mid-century to meet this goal and prevent the worst impact of climate change. Within the next 7 years, and this was written maybe 2-3 years ago, so we got 5 years now, the world can undergo irretrievable change if it could not emit enough greenhouse gases from fossil fuel combustion to cross the threshold for dangerous global heating in the year 2027. We are in trouble, and we need to make climate control a priority. Not just something that we talk about, nothing that's something that's just talk about at the council. As Emily stated, they need to be followed through on a weekly basis. What are we doing? When I spoke at council about the referendum for the police and the crime that's going on, I am very proactive. Let's not wait till it happens to find out how we get out the situation. Let's make sure it doesn't happen. Let's make sure that we don't have a New Orleans Hurricane Katrina and after the fact. Let's get in front of it and find out what we can do to make sure that this does not happen.
Yeah, my turn. So the word I heard in there is accountability. One of the things is to be transparent on where we're going at and what we're doing. How many years plans and blah, blah, blah. I think one of the things that we can do is a journey of 1,000 miles begin with one step. As we're working to make things more green, we can hopefully transition some of our equipment out to help what we're doing to help climate change. It's difficult to go into any system and go, let's change all those vehicles, let's find the best gas motor, let's find the not gas motor, electric motor, and this and that. But you can switch out a couple. You can experiment with it to make everything move gradually, because making a step in a direction is better than waiting and going, I'm waiting for a great enough options where we can change everything. As long as we're moving forward, eventually 5%, 10%, before you know it, we can convert everything 100%. And that's how we can help with our accountability and set hard deadlines. Like I am a programmer. We use waterfall techniques and everything on that. When something falls behind, it snowballs. And before you know it, you can't get anything done. When we miss a deadline and we can't do something, the first question we must ask all of ourselves and to answer with our community is, why did we drop the ball and why didn't we do this? And once you can do that and answer that question honestly, then we actually have accountability. Where we're not giving you an answer where you go, well, that's not a real answer, that's a non-answer, sir. And that's how I think we can be accountable, by being completely honest and making gradual steps where we can get 100% there.
Any other questions? Nobody? All right then. Well then, we're going to wrap it up. Before we leave, I would like to thank the library and the library director, Jocelyn Sansing, for setting up the room. And there was an overflow room across the hallway as well, just in case.
Wow.
And I also want to thank you for coming. And I want to thank all the candidates for being here. And good luck, everybody.
Thank you.